In a small, cozy pub tucked away on the outskirts of town, the annual dart tournament was in full swing. The place buzzed with energy, its wooden floors creaking underfoot as people moved around, drinks in hand, laughter filling the air. Neon signs flickered faintly on the walls, casting colorful glows over the crowd. At the center of it all stood a large dartboard, its surface worn from years of use, but still proudly displaying the numbers that promised glory to those skilled enough to hit them. The tournament had always been a local tradition, drawing in regulars and newcomers alike. It wasn't about big prizes or fancy trophies, just bragging rights and a chance to prove who reigned supreme among friends, neighbors, and rivals. This year, however, there was an unexpected twist. Someone no one expected to see. Clara, a quiet woman in her mid-30s, stood near the back of the room, clutching 3 darts awkwardly in her hand. She wasn't exactly sure how she'd ended up here. Life for Clara usually revolved around simple routines, baking fresh bread at the local bakery each morning, tending to her elderly mother after work, and occasionally indulging in a book or two during rare moments of free time. Darts? That wasn't part of her world, or so she thought. It all started a week ago when some of her coworkers decided to enter the tournament together. They joked about forming a team and roped Clara into joining them, teasing her about how fun it would be. "Come on, Clara," they said. "You need to get out more. What's the worst that could happen?" Reluctantly, she agreed, thinking it would just be another harmless outing. But now, standing in the noisy pub surrounded by confident players, Clara felt anything but excited. The other competitors were easy to spot. Most were men, though a few women joined in too, all wearing expressions of determination mixed with cockiness. Some carried custom-made dart cases like prized possessions, while others cracked jokes and laughed loudly, clearly enjoying themselves. These were people who lived for this kind of thing, who spent hours practicing their throws and strategizing their next moves. And then there was Clara, holding plain plastic darts borrowed from the pub owner, feeling completely out of place. As Clara scanned the room, she couldn't help but notice the curious glances coming her way. A few heads tilted slightly as if trying to figure out why someone like her, a woman who rarely spoke unless spoken to, whose idea of adventure involved trying a new recipe, was even here. One man leaned over to his friend and whispered something, pointing discreetly in Clara's direction. His friend chuckled, and soon enough the whisper spread like wildfire through the crowd. "Is she serious?" Someone muttered loud enough for nearby ears to catch. Another chimed in, "Maybe she thinks this is a charity event." The comments stung, but Clara forced herself to keep smiling. She reminded herself that she hadn't come here to impress anyone. She'd come because her coworkers dared her to step outside her comfort zone. Still, hearing those words made her feel smaller than ever. Despite the mocking tone of the crowd, Clara tried to focus on the positives. The pub itself was charming, with its warm lighting and rustic charm. The smell of beer mingled with the faint aroma of fried food wafting from the kitchen, creating an atmosphere that was oddly comforting. Even the dartboard, battered as it was, seemed to beckon her forward, daring her to take a shot. Her mind wandered briefly to memories of her childhood. Back then, her father used to teach her little tricks whenever they played games together. "Focus on where you want the dart to go, not on what might go wrong," he'd say. Those lessons had stuck with her, even though she hadn't picked up a dart in years. Maybe, just maybe, they could help her now. But as the tournament began, and names were called for the first matches, Clara's nerves returned in full force. Each player stepped up to the line with confidence, their movements practiced and precise. Cheers erupted whenever someone scored well, while groans followed missed shots. Clara watched intently, studying their techniques and hoping to pick up tips she could use later. Yet every time she imagined herself stepping up to throw, doubt crept in. When her name was finally announced, the room grew eerily quiet. All eyes turned to her, some amused, others skeptical. Clara took a deep breath and walked toward the line, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the weight of everyone's stares pressing down on her, making her legs feel heavier with each step. As she positioned herself, gripping the first dart tightly, she heard a voice pipe up behind her. "Don't mess it up. someone teased, earning a round of chuckles from the audience. Clara froze for a split second, her cheeks burning red. For a moment, she considered walking away altogether. Why put herself through this humiliation? Who cared about proving anything to these strangers? But then she remembered why she was here, not for them, but for herself. Taking another steadying breath, she raised her arm, aimed carefully, and let the dart fly. Time seemed to slow as it sailed through the air, only to land far off target. The room erupted in laughter, and Clara felt her stomach sink. Her first throw was a disaster, just as everyone had predicted. Instead of retreating, though, Clara squared her shoulders and prepared for her second shot. The mocking voices faded into the background as she focused solely on the board ahead. This wasn't just about winning or losing anymore. It was about showing herself that she could face challenges head-on, even when the odds were stacked against her. Little did she know, her journey was only beginning. The laughter that followed Clara's first throw echoed through the pub, bouncing off the walls and settling uncomfortably in her chest. She stood frozen for a moment, staring at the dart that had landed far from its intended target. It wasn't just the miss that stung. It was the weight of everyone's judgment pressing down on her. The room seemed to hum with amusement, a mix of chuckles, whispers, and outright mockery. One man leaned back in his chair, shaking his head dramatically, as if to say, "What did you expect?" Another called out, "Maybe stick to baking, sweetheart." The words cut deep, but Clara refused to let them show on her face. She glanced briefly at the crowd, her eyes scanning the sea of faces. Some looked genuinely entertained by her failure, while others appeared indifferent, already dismissing her as irrelevant to the competition. Her co-workers, seated near the back, exchanged awkward glances. They hadn't expected this outcome either. When they dared her to join, it had been a light-hearted joke, a way to encourage her to try something new. Now, seeing her struggle under the spotlight, they felt a pang of guilt. One of them gave her an encouraging thumbs up, though it was half-hearted at best. Clara appreciated the gesture but knew she couldn't rely on anyone else to pull her through this. Taking a step back, she steadied herself. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked up the second dart, its smooth surface cool against her fingers. For a moment she closed her eyes, blocking out the noise around her. She tried to recall the advice her father used to give her when she was younger. Focus on where you want the dart to go, not on what might go wrong. Those words had always seemed so simple back then, almost like common sense. But now, standing in front of a room full of skeptics, they felt more profound than ever. Clara opened her eyes and fixed her gaze on the board. She ignored the smirks, the snickers, and the occasional sarcastic comment. Instead, she visualized the path the dart needed to take, the arc it would follow, the exact spot where it should land. Slowly, deliberately, she adjusted her stance. Her feet shifted slightly, finding a stable position. Her arm raised, the dart poised perfectly in line with her target. This time she didn't hesitate. With a flick of her wrist, she released the dart, watching as it sailed through the air. For a split second, the room fell silent. Then came a collective murmur of surprise. The dart landed squarely in the triple 20 segment, earning her a respectable score. Gasps rippled through the crowd, followed by hesitant applause. Clara blinked, momentarily stunned by her own success. Had she really done that? She glanced at the board again just to be sure. Yes, there it was. Her dart nestled neatly in one of the highest scoring sections. The reaction from the audience was mixed. Some clapped politely, impressed by the unexpected turn of events. Others exchanged skeptical looks, wondering if it had been a fluke. A few even muttered under their breath, suggesting that luck must have played a role. But Clara didn't care. For the first time since stepping up to the line, she felt a spark of confidence ignite within her. Maybe she wasn't as hopeless as everyone, including herself, had assumed. Encouraged by the small victory, Clara prepared for her third and final throw of the round. The pressure mounted as all eyes remained fixed on her. She could feel the weight of expectation, not from the crowd who still doubted her abilities, but from within herself. She wanted to prove that her previous shot hadn't been an accident. More importantly, she wanted to silence the nagging voice inside her head that whispered she didn't belong here. This time she took her time. Every movement was deliberate, calculated. She rolled the dart between her fingers, feeling its weight, its balance. She exhaled slowly, letting go of any lingering tension. The room seemed to fade away, leaving only her and the board. She pictured the bullseye in her mind, imagining the satisfying thud the dart would make as it struck its mark. With unwavering focus, she drew her arm back and threw. The dart flew straight and true, slicing through the air with precision. It hit the center of the board with a resounding thunk, dead center in the bullseye. The room erupted into stunned silence, followed by a wave of disbelief. People craned their necks to get a better look, unsure if what they'd just witnessed was real. Clara stepped back, her heart racing, her palms sweaty. She couldn't believe it herself. Had she really pulled off a perfect shot? Slowly, the murmurs turned into cheers. Someone whistled appreciatively, breaking the spell of shock that had gripped the room. Applause spread like wildfire, growing louder with each passing second. Clara stood rooted to the spot, overwhelmed by the sudden shift in energy. Just moments ago, she had been the subject of ridicule, the underdog everyone dismissed without a second thought. Now she was the center of attention for an entirely different reason. Her co-workers rushed over, patting her on the back and congratulating her enthusiastically. "I can't believe it," one of them exclaimed, grinning ear to ear. "You were amazing," another chimed in. "Who knew you had it in you?" Clara smiled faintly, still processing what had just happened. She hadn't come here expecting to win or even to impress anyone. All she wanted was to face her fears and prove to herself that she could handle whatever life threw her way. And yet, somehow, she had managed to do both. As the initial excitement began to die down, Clara noticed subtle changes in the attitudes of those around her. Some of the players who had mocked her earlier now approached her with newfound respect, or perhaps curiosity. One man extended his hand, introducing himself and complimenting her skill. Another asked casually where she had learned to play so well. Clara shrugged modestly, deflecting the praise. "Just got lucky, I guess," she said, though deep down she knew it was more than that. Despite the positive reactions, Clara couldn't shake the memory of how quickly the crowd had turned against her after her first failed attempt. Their laughter still echoed faintly in her mind, a reminder of how cruel people could be when faced with someone who didn't fit their expectations. But instead of letting it weigh her down, she chose to channel that experience into motivation. If anything, it made her performance even sweeter. She hadn't let their negativity define her. Instead, she had risen above it, proving that resilience could triumph over doubt. By the time the next round began, Clara felt a quiet determination settle over her. She wasn't naive enough to think the rest of the tournament would be easy. There were plenty of skilled players eager to reclaim the spotlight, but she also knew she had found something valuable within herself: confidence, courage, and the ability to persevere despite adversity. These weren't qualities she had walked into the pub with, but they were ones she intended to carry forward no matter what challenges lay ahead. The buzz in the pub had shifted dramatically after Clara's unexpected bullseye. What started as a room filled with mockery and doubt was now alive with curiosity and even admiration for the quiet woman who had turned the tables on everyone. As the tournament progressed, Clara found herself moving into subsequent rounds, each match bringing new challenges and higher stakes. The players she faced were no longer dismissive. Instead, they watched her closely, trying to gauge whether her earlier success had been a fluke or if she truly possessed hidden talent. Clara's second match pitted her against Tom, a burly man known for his brash attitude and sharp aim. He swaggered up to the line, cracking jokes about how he'd go easy on her since she was just getting started. The crowd chuckled nervously, unsure whether to take his words seriously or not. Clara simply nodded politely, refusing to let his bravado rattle her. She knew better than to engage in banter. Her focus was solely on the game ahead. Tom went first, launching his darts with practiced ease. Each throw hit its mark, earning him a solid lead. The audience cheered loudly, clearly rooting for the veteran player to reclaim dominance. When it was Clara's turn, the energy in the room shifted again. Some spectators whispered bets among themselves, convinced that Tom's performance would overshadow hers. Others leaned forward, eager to see if Clara could replicate her earlier magic. She stepped up to the line, gripping the first dart tightly. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she reminded herself of what she had learned just moments ago. Focus mattered more than fear. Ignoring the murmurs around her, she visualized the board once more. With a steady hand, she released the dart, and it landed cleanly in the triple 18 segment. A murmur of approval rippled through the crowd. Clara didn't pause to celebrate. Instead, she moved straight into her next throw. This time, the dart struck the double 20, earning her another impressive score. By the time she finished her round, she had narrowed the gap significantly, leaving Tom visibly irritated. The rest of the match unfolded in tense exchanges, with both players trading leads. Tom's frustration grew as Clara continued to hold, her ground matching him dart for dart. When the final scores were tallied, Clara emerged victorious, not by a landslide, but enough to secure her place in the next round. The applause that followed was louder this time, less hesitant and more genuine. Even Tom offered a begrudging nod of respect before stepping aside, muttering something about beginner's luck. As the tournament wore on, Clara's presence became impossible to ignore. Word of her surprising skill spread quickly, drawing larger crowds to watch her matches. People who hadn't paid attention earlier now gathered eagerly, speculating about how far she might go. Some praised her technique, noting how consistent and deliberate her throws were. Others marveled at her composure, remarking on how calm she remained despite the growing pressure. Clara, however, stayed humble. She didn't see herself as extraordinary, just someone doing her best in an unfamiliar situation. Her third match proved to be her toughest yet. Facing Sarah, a seasoned competitor with a reputation for ruthless precision, Clara knew she couldn't afford to make mistakes. Sarah wasted no time asserting her dominance, landing several high-scoring shots in rapid succession. The audience gasped as her darts consistently hit the bullseye, showcasing years of practice and dedication. For a moment, Clara felt a flicker of doubt creep in. Could she really compete with someone so skilled? But then she remembered something important. This wasn't just about winning. It was about proving to herself that she could rise to any challenge, no matter how daunting. Taking a deep breath, Clara steadied herself and prepared for her turn. She focused intently on the board, blocking out Sarah's confident demeanor and the murmurs of the crowd. One by one, she launched her darts, each throw landing closer to her intended targets. Though she trailed behind Sarah initially, Clara's persistence began to pay off. By the midpoint of the match, she had closed the gap, earning cheers from the audience. The final round of the match came down to a nail-biting finish. Both players were tied with only 3 throws remaining to determine the winner. Sarah went first, her darts hitting 2 high-scoring segments but missing the bullseye on her last attempt. The crowd groaned softly, sensing an opening for Clara. When it was her turn, the room fell silent. Every eye was fixed on her as she lined up her first dart. The tension was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. Clara exhaled slowly, clearing her mind of distractions. She raised her arm, aimed carefully, and released the dart. It struck the triple 20 segment, earning her a crucial boost. Encouraged by the small victory, she moved on to her second throw, which landed squarely in the double 15. The final dart was all that stood between her and victory. She paused, letting the weight of the moment sink in. Then, with unwavering focus, she threw and watched as it landed perfectly in the bullseye. The room erupted in cheers, louder and more enthusiastic than ever before. People clapped and whistled, some even standing to give her a standing ovation. Sarah approached Clara with a smile, extending her hand in congratulations. "You earned it," she said sincerely, her earlier confidence replaced by genuine respect. Clara shook her hand, still processing the magnitude of what had just happened. She had defeated one of the toughest competitors in the tournament, and done so with grace and determination. By the time Clara advanced to the semifinals, she had become the talk of the pub. Players who had once mocked her now sought her out, asking questions about her technique or simply congratulating her on her impressive run. Spectators whispered excitedly about the possibility of her making it to the finals, while others debated whether she could maintain her momentum against increasingly skilled opponents. Even the pub owner, who rarely took an interest in the tournament, stopped by to offer Clara a free drink, a gesture of goodwill and acknowledgement of her achievements. Through it all, Clara remained grounded. She didn't let the praise inflate her ego or distract her from the task at hand. Instead, she used it as fuel to keep pushing forward. Each match taught her something new: how to adapt to different playing styles, how to stay calm under pressure, and how to trust her instincts when the stakes were highest. More importantly, she discovered a newfound sense of confidence, not just in her ability to play darts, but in her capacity to face challenges head-on. As the semifinal round approached, Clara reflected on how far she had come. Just hours earlier, she had been an unlikely participant, dismissed by nearly everyone in the room. Now she was a contender, someone people respected and admired. But she knew the journey wasn't over yet. There were still battles to fight, obstacles to overcome, and lessons to learn. And though she couldn't predict the outcome, one thing was certain: she was ready to face whatever came next. The semifinal round of the dart tournament brought Clara face to face with her toughest opponent yet, Mark, a man whose reputation preceded him. Known as the Bullseye King, Mark had dominated the local circuit for years, his name etched on nearly every trophy the pub had awarded. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried himself with an air of unshakable confidence. His presence alone commanded attention, and when he stepped up to the line, the room fell silent in anticipation. Mark wasn't just skilled, he was theatrical. Before each throw, he would pause dramatically, adjusting his stance or wiping imaginary sweat from his brow, drawing laughter and cheers from the crowd. The audience adored him, and why wouldn't they? He was charismatic, talented, and always delivered when it mattered most. But there was something else about Mark that made him stand out: his arrogance. He didn't just want to win, he wanted to crush his opponents, leaving no doubt about who was superior. When Mark's name was announced alongside Clara's, the energy in the room shifted once again. Some people cheered wildly for Mark, eager to see their favorite player take home another victory. Others watched quietly, wondering if Clara could pull off another upset. A few even placed friendly bets, though most leaned heavily in Mark's favor. Clara, however, remained unfazed by the odds stacked against her. She had already proven herself capable of defying expectations, and she wasn't about to let anyone or anything shake her resolve. As the match began, Mark wasted no time asserting his dominance. His first dart landed cleanly in the triple 20 segment, earning him a strong start. The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers fueling his swagger. He turned to Clara with a cocky grin as if to say, "Good luck keeping up." Clara nodded politely, refusing to rise to the bait. Instead, she focused on her own game, blocking out the noise around her. When it was her turn, Clara approached the line with quiet determination. She took a moment to steady herself, visualizing the path her darts needed to follow. Her first throw landed squarely in the double 19 segment, earning her a respectable score. The audience murmured appreciatively, impressed by her consistency. Mark raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised but not yet concerned. After all, he had been in this position countless times before, facing underdogs who managed to keep up for a round or two before inevitably faltering. The second round saw Mark pulling further ahead, his throws landing with precision and flair. Each bullseye was met with thunderous applause, while Clara's steady performance earned polite clapping at best. The gap between their scores widened, and some spectators began whispering that the match might be over sooner than expected. But Clara refused to let the pressure get to her. Instead, she dug deeper, drawing on the resilience she had discovered earlier in the tournament. By the third round, Clara's persistence started to pay off. While Mark continued to dominate, she began chipping away at his lead, landing critical shots that kept her in contention. Her throws weren't flashy or showy. They were deliberate and calculated, each one closing the gap just a little more. The audience noticed the shift, their cheers growing louder as Clara fought back. Even Mark seemed to sense the change, his confident smirk fading slightly as he realized she wasn't going down without a fight. The turning point came during the fourth round. Mark, perhaps overconfident in his lead, missed a crucial shot, leaving the door open for Clara to make a move. Seizing the opportunity, she stepped up to the line and launched 3 flawless throws, each one hitting its mark with pinpoint accuracy. The crowd went wild, their cheers echoing through the pub. For the first time, Mark looked genuinely rattled. He glanced at the scoreboard, then at Clara, his expression a mix of frustration and disbelief. With only 1 round left, the tension in the room reached a fever pitch. Both players were neck and neck, their scores so close that the final outcome hung precariously in the balance. Mark went first, his usual bravado replaced by intense concentration. His first 2 darts landed perfectly, earning him a significant boost. But his third throw missed the bullseye, giving Clara a chance to pull ahead. When it was Clara's turn, the room fell silent. Every eye was fixed on her as she lined up her first dart. She exhaled slowly, clearing her mind of distractions. With unwavering focus, she released the dart, and it struck the triple 20 segment. The crowd gasped, their excitement palpable. Her second throw landed in the double 18, bringing her within striking distance of victory. All eyes turned to the final dart, which would determine the winner. Clara paused, letting the weight of the moment sink in. She thought back to everything she had overcome to get here, the mockery, the self-doubt, the pressure of facing seasoned players. This wasn't just about winning a game. It was about proving to herself that she was capable of greatness, even when no one believed in her. Taking a deep breath, she raised her arm, aimed carefully, and threw. The dart sailed through the air, its path true and steady. It hit the bullseye with a satisfying thud, sealing her victory. The room exploded into cheers, louder and more enthusiastic than ever before. People clapped, whistled, and stomped their feet, creating a cacophony of celebration. Mark approached Clara with a respectful nod, extending his hand. "Well played," he said, his tone sincere despite the sting of defeat. Clara shook his hand, still processing the enormity of what she had achieved. As the reality of her win set in, Clara found herself surrounded by well-wishers. Players who had once mocked her now praised her skill and determination, shaking her hand and offering congratulations. Spectators patted her on the back, marveling at how far she had come since her first awkward throw. Even the pub owner joined in, presenting her with a complimentary drink and declaring her performance one of the most impressive he'd ever seen. But amidst the chaos, Clara remained grounded. She knew that her success wasn't just about talent, it was about perseverance, focus, and the courage to push through fear and doubt. She had faced challenges head-on, refusing to let negativity define her. And now, standing on the brink of the finals, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment, not because she had beaten others, but because she had surpassed her own limitations. As the semi-final round concluded, the atmosphere in the pub shifted once again. The crowd was buzzing with excitement, eagerly anticipating the final match. Clara's journey had inspired those around her, proving that anyone could rise to greatness with enough determination and heart. Though the ultimate challenge still lay ahead, Clara walked away from the semifinals knowing she had already won something far more valuable than any trophy: the belief in herself. The final match of the dart tournament was set to be a spectacle unlike any other. Clara, the unassuming baker who had walked into the pub as an underdog, now stood on the brink of victory against none other than Mark, the reigning champion and crowd favorite. The energy in the room was electric, with people packing tightly around the dartboard, eager to witness what promised to be an unforgettable showdown. Neon lights flickered above, casting colorful shadows over the crowd, while the hum of conversation and laughter filled every corner of the pub. As Clara prepared for her last challenge, she felt a mix of emotions swirling inside her. There was excitement, of course. She couldn't deny the thrill of making it this far, but also nerves. This wasn't just another round. It was the culmination of everything she'd worked for since stepping up to that line hours earlier. She glanced at Mark, who stood confidently near the board, his expression calm but determined. He exuded experience. Someone who thrived under pressure and knew exactly how to handle high-stakes situations. Clara reminded herself that she didn't need to match his bravado. She just needed to stay focused on her own game. The rules were simple. 5 rounds, each player taking turns to throw 3 darts per round. Scores would accumulate, and whoever finished with the highest total would take home the trophy. A modest wooden plaque engraved with the words, "Dart Tournament Champion." To most, it might not seem like much, but to Clara, it represented something far greater. It symbolized her journey from doubt to determination, from ridicule to respect. Winning wouldn't change her life dramatically, but it would cement the belief she had fought so hard to earn, that she was capable of achieving greatness when she put her mind to it. When the match began, Mark wasted no time asserting his dominance. His first dart landed perfectly in the triple 20 segment, earning him a strong start. The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices blending into a symphony of support for the veteran player. Clara watched silently, studying his technique and reminding herself not to let his early lead rattle her. When it was her turn, she stepped up to the line with quiet resolve. Her first throw landed cleanly in the double 19 segment, followed by 2 more solid shots that kept her within striking distance. Though the audience clapped politely, there was still a sense of skepticism lingering in the air. Could Clara really keep up with Mark? The second round saw Mark pulling further ahead, his throws hitting high-scoring segments with precision. Each bullseye drew louder applause, fueling his confidence and ramping up the pressure on Clara. But instead of crumbling under the weight of expectation, Clara dug deeper. She reminded herself of why she was here, not to prove anything to anyone else, but to push herself beyond her limits. With deliberate focus, she launched her darts, landing critical hits that slowly narrowed the gap between their scores. By the end of the round, the scoreboard showed Mark still in the lead, but Clara's steady performance earned murmurs of admiration from the crowd. By the third round, the tension in the room was palpable. Every throw mattered, every point counted. Mark's usual swagger began to falter slightly as Clara continued to chip away at his lead. Her throws weren't flashy or dramatic. They were precise and calculated, each one closing the gap just enough to keep her in contention. The audience noticed the shift, their cheers growing louder as they realized this was shaping up to be a true battle of skill and willpower. Even Mark seemed to sense the change, his confident grin fading into a look of intense concentration. The fourth round proved to be the turning point. Mark, perhaps feeling the pressure of Clara's relentless pursuit, missed a crucial shot, leaving the door open for her to seize control. Seizing the opportunity, Clara stepped up to the line and delivered 3 flawless throws, each one hitting its mark with pinpoint accuracy. The crowd went wild, their cheers echoing through the pub as Clara pulled ahead for the first time in the match. For a moment, Mark looked genuinely rattled, glancing at the scoreboard and then at Clara with a mixture of frustration and disbelief. With only 1 round left, the stakes couldn't have been higher. Both players were neck and neck, their scores so close that the final outcome hung precariously in the balance. Mark went first, his usual bravado replaced by sheer determination. His first 2 darts landed perfectly, earning him a significant boost. But his third throw missed the bullseye, giving Clara a chance to seal her victory. When it was Clara's turn, the room fell silent. Every eye was fixed on her as she lined up her first dart. She exhaled slowly, clearing her mind of distractions. With unwavering focus, she released the dart, and it struck the triple 20 segment. The crowd gasped, their excitement palpable. Her second throw landed in the double 18, bringing her within striking distance of victory. All eyes turned to the final dart which would determine the winner. Clara paused, letting the weight of the moment sink in. She thought back to everything she had overcome to get here, the mockery, the self-doubt, the pressure of facing seasoned players. This wasn't just about winning a game, it was about proving to herself that she was capable of greatness, even when no one believed in her. Taking a deep breath, she raised her arm, aimed carefully, and threw. The dart sailed through the air, its path true and steady. It hit the bullseye with a satisfying thud, sealing her victory. The room exploded into cheers, louder and more enthusiastic than ever before. People clapped, whistled, and stomped their feet, creating a cacophony of celebration. Mark approached Clara with a respectful nod, extending his hand. "Well played," he said, his tone sincere despite the sting of defeat. Clara shook his hand, still processing the enormity of what she had achieved. As the reality of her win set in, Clara found herself surrounded by well-wishers. Players who had once mocked her now praised her skill and determination, shaking her hand and offering congratulations. Spectators patted her on the back, marveling at how far she had come since her first awkward throw. Even the pub owner joined in, presenting her with a complimentary drink and declaring her performance one of the most impressive he'd ever seen. But amidst the chaos, Clara remained grounded. She knew that her success wasn't just about talent, it was about perseverance, focus, and the courage to push through fear and doubt. She had faced challenges head-on, refusing to let negativity define her. And now, standing on the brink of the finals, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment, not because she had beaten others, but because she had surpassed her own limitations. The semifinal round concluded, the atmosphere in the pub shifted once again. The crowd was buzzing with excitement, eagerly anticipating the final match. Clara's journey had inspired those around her, proving that anyone could rise to greatness with enough determination and heart. Though the ultimate challenge still lay ahead, Clara walked away from the semifinals knowing she had already won something far more valuable than any trophy: the belief in herself. The trophy was handed to her moments later, a simple yet meaningful token of her triumph. As Clara held it aloft, the crowd erupted into one final thunderous cheer. In that moment, she realized that the true victory wasn't the shiny plaque in her hands, it was the journey she had taken to get here. From being mocked and dismissed, to earning respect and admiration, Clara had proven that resilience and self-belief could overcome even the toughest odds. And as she smiled at the cheering crowd, she knew this was only the beginning of her story.